Wow, you have our attention, 49ers front office, and we are ready for it. We are just single-digit days away from the 2025 NFL Draft. Hit subscribe if you're looking for daily 49ers videos. It really helps me out. But when the San Francisco 49ers sent a mass exodus of players packing and didn't bring in the likes of a major free agent prospect, it sent a shiver down the spine of many of 49ers fan, myself included. This bold move was not the only one of the offseason. The 49ers rightly identified the biggest problems the 49ers had and brought in problem solvers to fix them as well. Robert Salah and Gus Bradley came in to fix the problems on defense. And then, of course, Brant Boyer came in. He was brought to bring desperately needed experience and structure to the special teams. Moves to restructure George Kittle and to sign a groundbreaking extension to Brock Purdy are also still potentially to come this offseason. But all of this still is not enough, because the 49ers are not done sending shockwaves yet. The 49ers were just picked as a top team expected to shape the 2025 draft by Brendan Deeg of NFL. He's an NFL news editor at The Score. And this is crazy. Like let's just talk about what it means that that the 49ers could shape the NFL draft. What does that mean? It sounds really enticing. Let's get into the details of it. Plus, later, we got some stuff around Fred Warner that we got to talk about as well. But let's go into this. So, San Francisco 49ers, one of the teams that could shape the 2025 NFL draft. Here's what he said. This is really interesting. The 49ers front office let several former starters walk in free agency following a disappointing 6-11 season riddled with injuries. Dre Greenlaw, Travarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, Javon Hargrave, and Deebo Samuel all battled ailments and are now gone. Okay. The 49ers roster is in transition, but the team still has the talent to make a run in 2025 and bounce back after a fourth-place finish in the NFC West. General Manager John Lynch has plenty of picks to work with, this as San Francisco holds the fifth most draft value per the Harvard Sports Analytics Collective. Lynch has sat back this offseason and watched his roster dwindle. So expect him to be active in the trade market, okay? The franchise has 7 picks in the final 4 rounds, which Lynch can use to move up in earlier rounds to acquire cheap veteran talent. So basically what is being said here about the 49ers is that of all the teams in the NFL, the 49ers are the top 5 most likely teams to make some moves, to send some shockwaves, to move some guys around, move some picks around in order to get their guys. And I'll tell you what, on the surface of this, I love it. I love the idea. When you get down to specific names and stuff, it gets tricky because we don't know who's going to be available at given picks. And so I'm not going to bother going that direction. And we'll just focus on the surface right now, which I think is great news that the 49ers are a team people are anticipating are going to trade up, trade down, that kind of stuff. Now, those trade up, trade down scenarios can sometimes be frustrating for a fan. I find them to be pretty interesting because it shows you not just the player that the team really wants, it shows you the lengths they're willing to go get them and to make sure that they get them. They obviously are having lots of conversations and have their guesses about who's going to pick who and all of that. They have their best guesses and their analytics and all that, So when they're in that scenario and everything's playing out, it also tells you a little bit about what other teams think about those players and what, obviously we'll talk about Ricky Pearsall from last year. That was for some people, it was a controversial pick. And the 49ers went with Ricky Pearsall earlier than he was projected to go, believing, presumably, that he was going to go before the next opportunity they would have to get him. So it makes sense, okay? What I found kind of particularly interesting about this, if we want to go a little bit below the surface, is that the 49ers, according to Mr. Deeg here, John Lynch using those later picks as capital to move up in earlier rounds or acquiring veteran talent. That's kind of interesting to me because I hadn't really thought about, will the 49ers be interested in some kind of more serious trades? The types of trades that they're always called out for, going into the draft, like Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel. These were guys that going into the draft last year, everybody's like, ooh, is John Lynch going to use these guys as trade bait as a part of some moves heading into this draft? And it didn't end up happening, but the 49ers were no doubt interested. They were no doubt interested in potentially letting those guys go for the right opportunity. The right opportunity did not come, and we know that because then after the first day of the draft, what did John Lynch say? He went out there and said after the first day that they were not going to trade Brandon Aiyuk, I think it was both of them. He said that, but that they're not on the table basically. So that tells you that they were looking for effectively what I believe was top 10 talent. They were looking for a top 10 first round pick at least in order to let one of these guys go. And you understand why, prior to Deebo Samuel's 2024 season, you understand why that's what the thinking was, right? And maybe it's not as simple as top 10 talent. Maybe it's, we needed more than just that second rounder that we were being offered or whatever. I don't know the specifics. Nobody does. Nobody in the public media anyway knows. So I just think it's interesting that now we're seeing kind of the tables turn a little bit where now there's somebody out there saying, hey, this could be John Lynch's move. This could be exactly what John Lynch is trying to do, bring in some veteran talent using those picks as a part of the puzzle. Now, we've talked about scenarios like that on this channel several times this offseason. So we're going to have to, wait and see how it all goes. We're 9 days away, which is super excited. But one other thing that I want to talk about today that you should be fired up about is Robert Salah. You guys, we have to be so hyped. I know that Robert Salah happens at a time in the offseason where it feels really good, and then you kind of forget about it, and you remember all you're left remembering was kind of how bad last season was, and you're kind of hoping that big moves happen in free agency, and they don't happen, and then you're like, wow, man, maybe something else will happen that we can be hyped about, and you kind of forget, hey, man, like when it comes to the beginning of the season, we're going to be thinking a lot about Robert Salah. We're going to be thinking a lot about Robert Salah's able to get out of his players. Well, Fred Warner was out there on Ross Tucker podcast. And if you're not hyped on Robert Salah, defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, my goodness, you might be after this because Fred Warner had a lot of really nice things to say about him. Tucker asked Warner of his thoughts on Salah returning to the 49ers after 4 years away. Warner replied, obviously, amazingly pumped because of what I had just spoke on. Nobody else had the vision for what I could be aside from Salah. Wow, that's high praise, man. That is high praise coming from a player who is Hall of Fame bound, in my opinion, who's on that trajectory, who has that in front of him, who, by the way, also said in the same interview, if I'm not mistaken, that he believes that we haven't seen anything yet, that what's coming is even better than what we've seen. And I'm all for it. I'm here for it. I'm excited about it. He also said this. He was the first and only guy to be like, I know that you're going to do well in our system. I have all these backers ranked. You're right there at the top with these guys. And no one else has said that. For whatever reason, he saw something in me. Now, how much of, let me bring that little brightness down there. How much of that had an impact on Fred Warner's career, we'll never truly know the full story there. But there's no doubt that this played into his mental psyche as he was converting to become one of the most important linebackers in the National Football League. Many people believe the best linebacker in the National Football League at points, even last season, the best in-form linebacker in the National Football League. New York. This is interesting. Because we don't want to forget, too, that Robert Salah, one of the things I feel like is completely underrated in the news right now about Robert Salah is the fact that he's dropping off all of those head coach responsibilities. He's taken all the lessons he learned through that process in New York, and now he's stepping back into a more centrally focused position on defense. So in the same article here, really interesting comments here. New York was not kind to Salah. He amassed a 20-36 record in just over 3 seasons at the helm and was fired after week 5 of 2024. Salah never had a stable quarterback play in New York, but he built the Jets into a formidable defense. If you remember, by the way, so formidable that the only defense the only defense that basically outranked the 49ers units on every single level effectively was the New York Jets. They were going into the season. We were looking at the week 1 game pretty freaked out about how good that defense was supposed to be. They became a top 5 unit in Salah's second season and were consistently dangerous during his tenure. The Jets slipped to number 15 in PFSN's Defense Plus metric last year once Salah was fired. But he now returns to a familiar place in San Francisco. The 49ers were PFSN's 26th best defense in 2024, so a change is very much needed. So here we go. It's about to happen. I don't know if you're hyped. Fred Warner's hyped, and I'm definitely bouncing off of that hype. I'm super stoked about it. In the meantime, however, we still have 9 days until the 2025 NFL Draft, and you know that I'm going to be keeping you informed, so you make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all of it. I am so fired up about this draft. There are so many ways. I've probably changed my mind on what the 49ers should do with those first few picks, the first 4 picks, all in the top 100. I've changed my mind on those picks at least 100 times. I cannot, I can only hold my excitement about which player I think the 49ers should draft first at pick 11 for an hour. And then I'm like, oh, I've already convinced myself it needs to be somebody else for whatever reason. So this is going to be a really exciting, electric time. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on all the action because it is going to be epic. Appreciate you guys and hope you guys have a fantastic evening. You are almost there to the middle of the week, heading toward the weekend again. You know you love that hump day coming up tomorrow.